All right, so just to orient you to this time this evening, I know your time is super valuable, so I'm going to try to keep my presentation part to an hour of this hour and a half time slot we have, and then leave about 20 to 30 minutes at the end for us to answer questions. So then if you don't have any questions and you just want the meat of content, you can be off in an hour. And if you want to make sure that you have a chance to ask a personalized question that's really more nuanced, if you can ask it then, and if during the workshop there's something that you ask that I think would be better addressed at the very end, that way we can make sure that we're saving time for that. Any logistical questions before we get started? Okay. So I want to definitely thank Kristen and Maya and Victoria and Allison and your entire amazing admin staff for making this happen. My name's Flora McCormick. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor and mental health consultant for early childhood and also a parenting coach. And I'm on a contract right now being able to work with your school because of a grant at the state level that is valuing the importance of educators and families having more resources to feel equipped in supporting the mental health of our children. And mental health in children is not just, a diagnosed problem of anxiety or depression. Mental health of our kids is promoting their best social emotional growth, things like helping them manage their emotions. So if you have any follow-up questions after the workshop about the work that I've been doing with the school, feel free to reach out to me. My website is sustainableparenting.com. And also you can reach out to me via email, which you should be on my email list now from registering for this workshop. Of course, unsubscribe if you need to at any point. No offense there. And any other questions? Oh, and I also do offer parent coaching. So if you are feeling like you'd like some more support around how to help your child manage their emotions, that is work that I do with families all the time. So you can reach out and we can talk about what that looks like. Okay. So let's dive into the topic tonight. So I'd love to hear, I do ask for some interaction. If you would type in the chat box or speak out loud, and I'll type it. What are some of the emotions that come up for our kids that are most challenging for us? Here comes Katie. Frustration and anger. Thank you. Anger, frustration, a lot of frustration and anger. Okay, so if you're thinking frustration or anger, you are not alone. Your fellow parents here are feeling that as well. So frustration and anger can regularly be something that is so hard because it gets explosive. I'm seeing separation anxiety. Thank you so much for that. Any other feelings that are hard for us to with our kids? Okay. So the first thing that I want to make sure that you're on the same page with me at is that I wish sometimes that we could make it so these feelings don't come up or that they don't come up as big as they are. When I work in therapy with families, sometimes it's like, could you just help her not get so sad? I mean, it's like the smallest thing and she's a puddle and it just seems irrational. It doesn't make sense. How do we make that stop? Or how do we make this kid just not get so angry? It feels like it can just, things push his buttons and he's just this like rage and it can come out of nowhere. And how do we make that not happen? So the first thing we have to know is this conversation tonight is helping children manage those emotions, not eliminate those emotions. We have to accept the child we got, not the child we ought. And sometimes our very highly sensitive or strong-willed, determined kids can be very challenging for us because they're very similar to us. We are also very sensitive, or we are also very strong and determined, or that they're the opposite. Like, I'm not so strong and determined, so I don't get why things are such a big deal to them. But there are strengths to these big emotions. Most of our, well, I believe all actually, of our biggest challenges are like a coin, that the other side of our biggest challenge is also our biggest strength. So when you guys think of that child that is super angry or prone to frustration, can you tell me for just a moment, can we brainstorm what are some of the strengths that also come with that, probably very determined and opinionated, big feeling child? You can type it or just unmute and share. Independence, says one mom. Yeah, that might also likely be a child, even though it's so frustrating how they want to do it their way. They're prone to do it their way. They're at least pushing through and finding their way. They are certain of what they want. Well said, Kat. Willingness to try something hard until they're able to do it, right? They've got that tenacity, that grit that is going to make them be phenomenal in the real world that has a lot of big challenges. And clarity of thought. Yeah, like we want these. I used to say I wanted like to raise a strong, independent woman, and I just didn't realize she'd already be there at age 2. I was hoping 22. But clarity of thought, clarity of opinion, that's going to be a strength that really is valuable. Just to kind of share personally, by the way, I have one child, a daughter who's very strong-willed and fiery and prone to more angry responses, and a very sensitive, prone to meltdown and sadness and separation anxiety older boy. So I don't know the exact situations that you're going in, that you're experiencing, but I will say that the tools I'm sharing with you tonight will come with stories that I hope to be very real and tangible, and understand the like what this is like to experience it in front of your in-laws, at the grocery store, at swim lessons, places that are embarrassing and hard and frustrating. Determination, yeah. So how about that sad child? How about that very sensitive, prone to melt and have their feelings hurt easily, or be more challenged with separation anxiety, or an anxious child? What do you see as some of the strengths in children that have that challenge? What are some common strengths, the other side of the coin? Christina, empathy. Flexible, they might be more flexible. Emotional, connected, relational. They might be your kid that's like so sweetly empathetic towards someone else that's hurt, even though when they have challenges, it's very big. Yeah, a great comfort for friends, Maya. Yeah, we were on the same pathway there. So I do want us to keep that in mind, that if you have a big feeling kid, we are not going to be able to squash that, but we're going to try to minimize the ways that that's being a challenge in their life and their relationships, and while also remembering that this is always going to be some truth in their being, and we want it to be because of the strength side. Okay, part 2, how do we help our children manage their emotions? Can we brainstorm for just a second? What do you think are some of the ways that you can best contribute to your child being able to manage their emotions? What are some things you can do to best support your child being able to manage their emotions? I see validate. Modeling. Yes. I will never forget when my daughter was like 2 months old, and my son was 3 years old, and the baby started crying, and he said, "Mom, we're done with Eva. We're just done with her." It was like this really dramatic, funny reaction. And then I paused and I was like, that is an exact replay of what he has seen me do with when dad comes home and I hand the baby over, because I was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and just saying, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore." And they watch us. They definitely watch us. Giving them the appropriate space to express their emotions. Thank you, Kat. One of the key principles I want you to think about, this comes from How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, Listen So Kids Will Talk, which has sold millions of copies. Still such a great foundational book that I highly recommend. In fact, I highly recommend it even for your bathroom. How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, Listen So Kids Will Talk. And I'll say there's a version for young kids that was written actually by the daughter of one of the original authors. So she believed in this principle so much, even being raised by the author of the first book, she wrote a how to talk so little kids will listen for 2 to 7 year olds. So both of those are phenomenal books. And the principle I love that I want to bring up here that you're talking about, Kat, is all feelings are allowed. Certain actions must be limited. Kat, you're nodding like you've heard that one before. Yes, this is so foundational for being a good emotion coach. That's part of what I'm going to give you tonight are the tools that come from another great book, John Gottman's book on how to raise, wait, excuse me. Um, Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child. Sorry, looking at my bookshelf there where I keep all my goodies. Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child. John Gottman wrote a phenomenal book on how to be an emotion coach. And similar to this attitude we're talking about tonight, it's not how do we squash their emotionalness, how do we coach them in understanding what a feeling is, in naming what a feeling is, and then in managing. How do we take ownership? How do we calm and work through our feelings? How do we notice and be aware of other people's feelings? So our whole job is to be an emotion coach. So those are two really good books, and it's all about the feelings are always allowed, but it doesn't mean the actions need to be allowed. So I'm just going to pause and go out on a limb for a second here, and please take this with a grain of salt. And I will clearly say this is not the opinion of Kristen or Bozeman Montessori, but this is my opinion as a licensed attachment-based counselor. We're living in a generation right now that's a little bit swinging the pendulum from it used to be that we had powerful adults and powerless kids, and we're kind of swinging towards powerful kids and powerless adults. And some of what that looks like is allowing children to hit or scream for long periods of times or kick and pinch and misbehave and believing that in order to support that emotion, we have to also allow the behavior. And this is not true. The two can be separated. We can support a feeling while saying this action can be limited. You're going to hear that in what I offer tonight. But one part of that is being able to say, you are totally allowed to be as angry as you need to be about this. And I'm going to give you just a minute. Can either give you a silent hug or space to calm down. Katie's hearting my comment, so I hope that means that I'm not being extremely offensive with that. But I just want to say, this is kind of my soapbox where there's a lot of wrong information out there right now that's swinging us a little too much. And so I do encourage you, if attachment and gentle parenting is an orientation that's important to you, I totally honor that. And I think it's important too. I think it's just important we don't slide to overly gentle, which is like allowing both the feelings and the behavior, which gets really jarbled for kids. And then it gets messy. So all feelings are allowed. Certain actions must be limited. I'll stop preaching. Actually, I'll pause. Does anyone have any questions or comments about what we've said so far?
This is Katie Flora. The reason I love what you said is because I just really believe inside of each human being, we have a desire to be good at something, to have a sense of mastery. And I feel like when I indulge things too much, um, I'm not meeting that need for mastery. And so I love this distinction between emotions are okay, every behavior is not. So thank you.
Thank you for that reflection. I appreciate it. Any other key comments or questions? Sage said, I really resonate with that. I've heard people making a distinction between gentle and permissive parenting. Exactly. We just want to make sure we're not sliding on the some of the things that are out there that is masked as gentle parenting, but actually is sliding towards permissive. We want to stay loving, supportive, reflective of emotions, and holding good, healthy boundaries on behavior because of mastery. You're absolutely right, Katie. I think of, confidence comes from competence. It's one of our best tools to think of. If you want a confident child, it doesn't come as much through just compliments or mantras as it comes through I am capable. I know how to put on my own shoes and all the wonderful things your Montessori skills teach you. I can get my own snack and I can manage my emotions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Mike says we struggle with how to limit the non-allowed behavior. So we're going to talk about that. Let's get into that, Mike. I appreciate you jumping right there. Let me make sure I'm not losing track of where we are. Okay. Um, so we were saying, how else can we contribute to our child's beliefs? Or, yes, okay. Let's talk about, I'm going to get to what you're talking about, Mike, but I want to start here. There are really three main reasons that our children emote or seem emotional. And I'll tell you, this totally stunned me. As I started in as an early parent, even after having my license in counseling with a specialty in working with youth and adolescents and having every job since childhood be with kids, I did not really understand this when I had kids. Kids really misbehave for one or emote, cry, show frustration, meltdown, tantrum for one of three reasons. The first, hungry, tired, overstimulated, or too much technology. I didn't used to have part four of that one 10 years ago, 12 years ago when I started this work, but it is so apparent in my work now that children, when they're having too much time on technology, sometimes it's this double-edged sword. It's like, but it's the only thing that keeps them occupied and calm so that I can make dinner. And it's like, but also we're noticing that when he's off, then it's just, he's so reactive. As soon as we're saying turn it off, we're seeing a lot of meltdowns and anger and snappiness. And it's because that, our technology these days, whether it's learning apps, or even cartoons, if we're doing too much of it for these little brains, it's like battery acid on the brain. It's just too overstimulating. It's getting their brain to get addicted to like self gratification, and then the real world is not that, and it's harder to manage emotions. Second, with that first one, is sleep. So I want you to think, with technology, less is more. With sleep, more is more. We live in a very busy world, and it just cannot be underestimated that our young kids still need 10 to 13 hours of sleep. And if you're having challenges with that, they're, not going to sleep well, they're not staying asleep well, or they're having super early wake ups. Um, Definitely, I encourage you to seek support, whether that's from a sleep coach or a parenting coach. There are several in our community, myself as a parenting coach, or several people who specialize in sleep coaching, but that is just really important thing to solve because that just makes such a difference. And then in terms of hungry, I don't know about you, but sometimes my kids are like the Snickers commercial. They're just melting down about things that don't matter. Like, I just don't understand why I have to go to school. And you're like, we do this every single day. And sometimes it's like there's just a snack needed, or we used to call it missing the window. If we miss the window in the morning of getting some protein and healthy food into their bodies before they watched a show, or we did getting dressed, it just made it so much harder. So I've had some families that experiment with, like, instead of getting dressed first and then breakfast, let's do breakfast first, then getting dressed. And oh my gosh, this kid's more cooperative because they need that snack in them or that protein. So food, technology, sleep, that's the first reason that kids get emotional. Any comments, question about that one? Okay, kind of triage. Let's check the vitals first. If we're attending to those, let's talk about the other things that are a little more cerebral and higher level to fix. Second key reason that kids emote and are emotional is because they're having a true feeling about something. Now, I thought that was always what it was about. I thought always every time I heard my kids start crying that I needed to attend to it so much because they're crying, they're saying, "Mommy, I need you." And so I would think that might mean that they need me. That must mean that they need me. But sometimes that emoting and even words can be tricky, that they're actually about part three, option three, which is they're doing it to see if they get what they want. And I do not believe that kids are manipulative. It's not about that at all. It's that they land on the planet just prone to learn from cause and effect. You know, their arms kind of wiggle and then like they move a little and their brain subconsciously without even thinking it is like, I think I'll do more of that. That seems to work. And what do you know? Then the more I wiggle, I'm actually getting farther. So from the beginning, you know, they cry and they get fed. They start learning that their emoting, their actions lead to reactions. And so we have to be careful to make sure that we're finding these nuances between how to support the feeling while also not having it change our boundaries. Otherwise, we can end up in a place where the way we're responding is feeding more upsets. And I will say, Katie's hearting me again. Thank you for that feedback, Katie. I will say part of the mantra I try to think on this one is we do not negotiate with terrorists. And please hear that with the greatest compassion. I do not think my children are terrorists, but I do know that if I negotiate with terrorist behavior, meaning they're like demanding and emoting, you will get this for me. I need the red cup. I'm not eating that. Or like the banana's broken. I'm not eating a broken banana. You know, then, well, okay, okay. My gosh, it's not that big of a deal. Come on, let's calm down. And we give a new banana. What have we learned? We have encouraged more terrorist behavior. If we negotiate with terrorist behavior, we encourage more of that behavior. Or not even always terrorist. Let me just be clear. Sometimes it's just that, like, they're just testing out. They're not consciously choosing to try to be difficult. It's just like, I was feeling this and it feels like the worst thing ever. And then if you fix it, then there's a cause and effect loop. When I emoted in that way, I got this thing to change. Or if you've been put down to bed and you've said, I love you so much, and here's a kiss on your hand, and I'm going to come back and check on you, and you're doing maybe the 4 check-in system I recommend, and still they're coming out and they're wailing and saying, you have to lay next to me for an hour, or you have to lay next to me, and you feel like a prisoner that you have to lay there, you may be actually encouraging this cycle that you're so frustrated by. Kat, thanks for nodding. So, if there and any other families, it is so hard to have everyone's cameras off. I know you're doing other things. If there's any way you can share in the comments or show your face, so I just know if any of this is landing with you in agreement or not agreement. That I appreciate that. Thanks so much, Katie. It requires so much discipline on my part. Wow. What a great realization and reflection, Katie. It's so true. It is hard for us to manage those differences and being unsure of whether this thing is a real need, a feeling, or just, we need to hold a limit. So let's parse that out. And Mike, this is back to your point of like, but how do we hold the boundary? How do we correct the behavior that is going along with this emoting? So I want to give you a template to consider when your child is emotional. Oh, now you're just seeing my very messy desktop. Don't look at that. You never saw that. You never had any thought that I have a bazillion things open on my screen. Okay, back to here. So what I want you to look at, I'm trying to make sure that I have also the ability to see your lovely faces. Okay, is everyone able to see this, how to respond to tantrums? Great, thanks for the thumbs up, Mike. So I want you to think about when they're in the blue zone, we're gonna give you some tools to connect before you correct and be able to see if you can calm that emotion as it's growing. We have a tool called Whoa, Low, and Slow and Connect Before You Correct that are very helpful when we're in the blue zone. When we get to the red zone, though, one of the biggest mistakes I see is parents continuing blue zone tools when we're in the red zone. And when we're in the red zone, if you can think about it this way, the going up the anger curve is like this image here. Our brain has three main operational stages where we have a reasonable part of our brain, or we can call it the wise owl to our kids, or we have the emotional part of our brain, and we have the fully flipped lid, angry ape or guard dog part of our brain. And if we think of that anger curve, when they're here, if we try to come in with this, here's all the reasons, let's talk about it. Don't you want to get a cookie? It doesn't land because it's not where their brain is at. Even if they're emotional, sometimes we're giving all these reasons, we end up making it worse. We become a spark instead of a swamp. I want to teach you how to be a swamp that can calm that down. And I want to teach you how, if we are here, we know how to meet them there and calm that down. So let's first talk about what we can do if we can catch it as it's starting to be upsetting. Like, oh, I'm never going to get a stick like this ever again. I knew one mom who said her daughter found a candy cane shaped stick at the park, and she was so generous that she gave it to a random girl who ran off with her mom and went home. And then as they're walking home, she says, I'm never going to find a stick like that ever again. Of course, it's just like the end of the world. Now, is it our inclination in that moment to support and validate her feeling? No. But I want to encourage you guys to consider a model of connection before correction. This is one of the most counterintuitive and super effective things if you can learn how to do it. And some of that is our own management, like you were just sharing a moment ago. And so I definitely want to honor that, that it's not always easy, but what does that look like? So connection statements, connecting before correcting can sound like, boy, you seem feeling weird. I notice you're just really bummed that you gave away that stick. Or you're having a hard time with the fact that you gave away that stick. Or final prompt that I really like is a bug and a wish. Oh, it just bugs you so much that you gave away that stick and you wish it could be back. So you seem feeling weird. I'm sorry, I'm trying to bring up, this is one handout I thought I had, but I did not. And so I'm just gonna bring it up for you. But I will share a fun little secret that I have magnets made of this connection phrases and the then correction phrases afterwards that are currently in the lobby of both properties of Bozeman Montessori as a freebie for you. So try to grab one of those when you're next on campus. I'm going to bring it up here in just one moment. All right, here we go, Flora. Pardon me. Thank you for the pause. Thank you for putting up with me. Here we go. So connect before connection sounds like you seem feeling weird, or I notice and describing what's happening, you're having a hard time with, or it bugs you when blank and you wish. You can teach that as a bug and a wish. Side note, bugs and wishes is one of my favorite pivots for whining. If you're tired of your child always whining, this is a great rescripting tool. Honey, how about every time you are telling me, but it's not fair, I want you to turn it into, it bugs me and I wish. It bugs me that brother has my toy and I wish I could have a turn with it. And I know this is a little higher level, but some of your kids that are really little, like 2 year olds, they might be able to do it. Or they might be able at least to start putting things into just the bug. It bugs me, you my toy. Like whatever words they've got, right? So I saw some heads nodding. I would love to hear which of these phrases stood out to you as like, oh, that's one I have not been using. I could see myself practicing that a little more. Any reflections of which of these phrases feels most valuable for you tonight?
I really like the bug and a wish. I feel like we try a lot of the or variations of the you seem or you're having a hard time with.
Mhm.
He's very persistent when he gets into that red zone. And so even though we're using language like
Yeah,
this, it is
it's not landing.
not landing.
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
So that may be because we're using blue zone strategy when he's in the red zone.
Mhm.
So red zone, only two options. And I consider red zone, for me, the easiest description is hitting, harming, or screaming. And half the challenge, like Katie said earlier, requires discipline on our part, is being clear on that boundary for yourself. If you're like, well, I don't know, where are we at? Should we be talking? Should we be holding this limit? It's hard in a moment that they're here because also when they're yelling, it flips our animal brain to be like, screaming does not help my brain, work very efficiently either. So if ahead of time we've decided hitting, harming, screaming, harming meaning pinching, throwing, scratching, pounding, right? Is the line at which we're going to say we're in the zone. We have one of only two options, offering a silent hug or some space to calm down. So that'd be one of my top things for you to think about, Mike. And part of this is explaining to the kid, like this is your brain on anger. So if we offer space to calm down, it's not that we're sending you to the dungeon to think about being bad. It's that we want, our brains when we're upset, are not in our best place, like explaining the flipped lid that I just did with you, or I will share with Kristen to email to you all afterwards, a little social story I have called The Animals in My Brain. So it shows, we have the wise owl, we have like our guard dog, and let's think about what does it feel like in your body when the guard dog is talking and is barking, and let's make a plan for that of how you can help your body calm down. We can have, some classrooms will have a little safe space where they can take a break, and it's not about go there to feel bad enough so you'll behave better. It's about go there till your body has had a chance to get back to your wise, wonderful self, to come back to this. And so having that line for yourself, also it's okay to say, sometimes I need to walk away so I can be my wise, wonderful self. Because right now I am not going to be if I keep trying to argue with you about this stick that feels ridiculous to me. Right? So questions, comments about the anger curve and about explaining to them the animals in the brain. Okay. And we're not going to get too deep into this, but I will just say, I encourage you to talk with your kid outside of the moment. If you have kids where you've tried to give them space to calm down and they come clawing at you like a raccoon that just found out fell off a branch, then one of the big missing pieces, I think, is probably practicing what that calming process is going to look like. And one family I worked with called it the calm down game, and just practicing it 1 to 2 times a day, saying, let's practice. Let's imagine that mom is just so mad. I want to scream. I want to punch something. I want to scratch. Can you help me to take a break over here, whether it's on the couch or a little, lowest step of your stairs, or a little mat in the bathroom or in their bedroom? Any of those are options, whatever fits for your family values and your child. that we can offer a space to calm down. We can offer being in that space with them, which we call a time in, or we can offer if they feel like they need space on their own. And the more we've practiced outside of the angry moment, going to that space, squeezing a pillow, screaming into a pillow, or pounding on the bed, or taking some slow breaths. Our younger kids especially do better when something is experienced, not just explained. So you've explained, hey, when you're mad, could you take some deep breaths? They've only heard it explained. We got to have it experienced. Let's practice, practice, practice. And it's not a one and done. We wouldn't sit down with our kids and be like, so here's how soccer works. You're going to kick the ball, you're going to go towards the goal, and then you're going to use your foot, and you're going to get it in there. Okay, you got it? Awesome. And then just show up at the game, right? You'd be getting out there and practicing, kicking the ball around, and you know it takes many iterations for their foot to figure out how it connects and how what is the goal. So think about that with teaching anger management strategies too. So this is to show you the animals in my brain handout that I'll make sure I give to Kristen to share with you all. This lovely little picture explaining that the kind of animals, what does it feel like when that guard dog is barking in your body, and what can we do to help that guard dog calm down? Let's make a cool off space that feels good for you to get back to being a good boss of your body. That's another good tool that I like for explaining to kids that are having some aggressive actions when they're upset. One other tool that I can offer you with that is a little handout that I've made called Tools for an Angry Body. And this can be something that you can use in your practice time with your kids, or building a space with them of where they can calm down, is having pictures like this and thinking these are all options that we have when we're upset. We can do slow breaths. You can teach your kids things like roller coaster breathing. Let's breathe in and go down the roller coaster, and up the roller coaster, breathe in, and down the roller coaster, breathe out. You can do candle breathing. Let's blow out the candle. Let's blow out the next candle. You can teach it. The second one down on the left, I call steel and spaghetti, because that's how I teach it to kids. It's like, this is progressive muscle relaxation. Let's breathe in and squeeze our body really tight. 3, 2, 1, like there's steel pumping through our veins like Wolverine. And then let's breathe out and be a spaghetti noodle. Let's do a few of those. In fact, hey guys, would you entertain me? Let's do one together so you can feel it, so you can know what it's like to experience instead of just having it explained. So if you would with me, breathe in and shrug your shoulders up to your ears and make fists down here so everything's squeezing really tight. Hold it in 3, 2, 1. Slow exhale out your mouth while you relax. Drop your shoulders far from your ears. Let's do one more. Shrug your shoulders up as you breathe in. Hold 3, 2, 1. Exhale and drop everything. One more comfortable breath. And then my last favorite on this for the adults, squeeze your shoulder blades back towards each other while you breathe in. 3, 2, 1. Slowly exhale and give yourself a hug. And just for a second, say to yourself, I appreciate you for all that you do. And slowly take one more breath in. Squeeze here and relax your hands all the way to your thighs. Anyone want to share what you're noticing in your body or your emotions?
One thing I will say is, and have getting to work with you previously and trying to manage big emotions in my son, a lot of the techniques that we use to try and help children, I feel them really being helpful to me as well, like the whoa, low, and slow. When we both get really heated in those moments, trying to work through these practices, they don't always help him. It's getting a lot better, but it helps me be able to deal with the situation in a less angry and elevated way. So I think that's one thing.
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else want to share? I'll get to the whoa, low, and slow tool in just a minute so we don't miss that. Anyone else want to share what you noticed in your body doing some squeeze and relax? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Okay. Well, I hope that this also is a tool for you to notice how things can shift. This is my favorite 30-second fix when I'm about to strangle my child. As we said earlier, when we need to be able to model being able to manage our emotions. So this is a tool I offer you that maybe you do a couple as like an emotional vitamin. I try to do them sometimes when I'm using the restroom just to like squeeze and like just kind of give yourself, if you're running at a 7 or 8, it's easy to flip our lid into a 10. So bringing yourself down throughout the day with some slow, relaxing breathing. One other tool related to this that I want to share with you is is something called progressive muscle relaxation for kids. That's what this miniature version is. And there's a really great video I love that if you have kids that tend to experience a lot of anger, or then they're having a lot of anxiety or difficulty calming down at bedtime, this is one of my favorite tools to play this 8-minute video and go through with them. And I'll just share a little piece of it.
Can feel sore? This is not just from running or playing. Sometimes when we feel sad, angry, or worried, our muscles feel the same way. The cool thing is, by relaxing our body, we can also relax our feelings. Today we're going to do a muscle relaxation exercise. This is all about making our muscles really, really tight and then relaxing them. Tilt your neck up, up, and up. Good. Bring your neck back down and relax. Now, raise your shoulders up to your ears. Pretend you're a little turtle trying to hide your head in its shell. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Your shoulders close to your ears. Great. Now relax and bring your shoulders all the way back.
So I can send that as well. It's a wonderful tool to help walk from the head down to the toes, and could be something that if you practiced in a calm moment or just to get ready for bed, it can be more accessible as a thought also when they're angry or anxious out on the soccer field or going into swim lessons. And it could be something you play in the car while you're driving to school if they've had some big feelings about that separation, just as a way to walk from head to foot, squeezing like a sponge, getting out that anxiety and moving down to the toes. So now I'd like to talk about the whoa, low, and slow tool. So often when our kids are getting emotional with us, it can be easy to talk a lot. Anyone ever feel like you have the air of over talking a 2-year-old or 4-year-old, and then you're just battling each other, and it's like, but I don't want to go to bed. It doesn't make any sense. Or I don't want to go to swim lessons. I'm never going. You can't make me. And then you're trying to say, yes, you will. I mean, I know once I got so frustrated with my daughter that before I knew it, in our argument, I was garnishing tooth fairy money because I was like, we had gotten so much into the argument. I was saying, well, if you don't go into gymnastics, then you're going to owe me $20 and I'm going to take it out of your tooth fairy money. I know her personally. And then it was like, oh my gosh, Flora, okay, hold on. This is not helpful. The talking fast is not getting us anywhere. So when our kids are starting to get frustrated, I want us to think of this template. So one possible example I just want to think of, let's imagine, Maya, would you be a little kid for me for just a second? And that you're saying, it's not fair that she has my toy. I really want it.
Yes.
And I'm going to first react in a not so helpful way. And then I'm trying the whoa, low, and slow tool and see how that feels.
Okay. I'm just really upset they have my toy and I want it back.
You have so many other toys, Maya. You could play with this thing. You could play with that thing. Does it really matter? My gosh, come on.
I'm really upset they have my toy and I want it back.
Oh my, are we really doing this again?
Please.
Okay, thank you. Pause. So first of all, just out of humility, can anyone relate to ending up saying things like I said? Yes, I can act them very well because I for sure have said these things. And then it doesn't land. I know it doesn't. It's somehow sometimes hard to catch in the moment. Let's try another option. So if you could say the same thing, Maya, and I'm going to try this template and just try to react naturally to whatever it leads you to want to say or do.
I'm really upset they took my toy and I want it back.
Oh, wow. Whoa.
But it's my toy and I want it back. I'm upset. I'm angry.
Yeah, you sound frustrated.
I'm very frustrated. It's mine and I want it back.
Why?
Hmm. What could we do to make this better?
I want my toy back.
I do want your toy.
Hard when we don't have our toy.
Yes. And it's mine and I don't want to share it.
Hmm. Maybe we do just a 30-second hug. So, what did you notice? What felt different the first time versus the second time? And it's not always perfect. She might still be wanting the thing, but what do you notice felt, or what might the child be likely thinking, feeling, or deciding the first time versus the second time? So Mike says calming. Hmm.
Oh, that was from before.
Oh, sorry. Okay. What are your thoughts about that whoa, low, and slow? Katie.
I, I think the child would feel seen and heard,
Mhm.
recognized, not alone in their feelings.
And it might not validate it, says Cherie. Might not bring them all the way to like, okay, I'm just a little robot of cooperation, but at least maybe be that swamp instead of the spark that causes it to start getting worse. Kat or Mike, what are your thoughts?
I was gonna say, I think the first response, the kid was probably just still having one track mind of, but this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want, and that's the only thing that they can think of. Where the second option, I know I do that a lot, and I work at Bozeman Montessori, and so what I try to do a lot is to ask them, well, what should we do about that? No matter kind of what, if they're upset, I'm just like, well, what should we do? Even if they fall and they don't have a big bump or bruise or anything, but they're super upset. Well, what should we do to make you feel better? And I think that switches their brain to focus on something else, and that calms them down to, like, do I want a Band-Aid? Do I want, we have boo boo spray, just water, but like, do I want to spritz a boo boo spray, or something like that? I think the second one definitely switches their energy. Yeah.
Yeah, and the what can we do to make it better? It may not mean that I'm going to give the toy, but I may be able to hold the boundary. Yeah, that is hers right now. What can we do to help you feel better about finding a different toy?
Yeah, and definitely in that situation of just what can we do? Do you think we can give that person another minute or two with the toy and then see if they want to share at that point? And that helps as well, I feel like.
Yeah. So, and I have a podcast episode recently about this, but it's like, how do we solve this fairness issue that can come up between siblings? We actually want to focus more on just solving the feeling, not the fairness. It's not about like, okay, we're going to set a timer so you get it in 2 minutes. It's, oh, you're having a hard time picking another toy. Let me help you with that. And I'm happy to give you a hug and work through that emotion. I'm not going to change that our family rule is that when someone has something, it's theirs till they're done. But I can help you through the emotion you're having about that and how that feels right now. Mm-hmm. How about you, for you, Maya, since you did the role play, what genuinely did you find yourself feeling, or any insight being really standing in the shoes of a child?
It's harder to be aggressive. I don't, that's an intense word, but it's harder to want to fight when the other person is calm and not in the same fight mode. It's a lot easier to stay elevated and in a fight mode when the other person's giving it right back.
Yeah. When you argue, it's easy to keep arguing back, but when it's kind of like letting go of that power struggle rope and just holding their side with them to then walk the direction you want. And the feeling of it, though, as a parent, can be very counterintuitive to lean into that and to not argue our case. I think of it like a dog bite. I've been told that if you get bit by a dog, you should lean into the bite to release their jaw so you could get your hand out. The more you try to pull, you're just making it worse. And sometimes that's how it feels, to lean in and say, oh gosh, okay, so you just feel like this is so unfair. And that's a big feeling. That is hard. But it's a tool we call name it to tame it. Now, Kristen, I want to back up for a second. Kristen asked, what are your thoughts if the red happens in a public space? And I would say, that's where the silent hug or space to calm down comes as a possibility. I mean, I had a time in Joann's once where my kid just wanted to emote a ton about how he didn't want to be in the store with me while I was doing this project with someone. And I just held him and said to people around me, like, he's just gonna have some feelings right now. I'm just letting you know I'm aware of that and it's okay and he's safe. And I was probably as red as Maya's shirt in embarrassment. And yet I just tried to know that that was what was needed in the moment. And it was a moment of what I call suffering with a purpose. So you can stop suffering in circles. Sometimes we have to deal with that embarrassing a moment and handling, like, it's okay for you to feel this, but doesn't mean we're going to leave the store. My other favorite option is a bathroom or the car. So if you're at a restaurant or you're at a friend's house, saying, oh, let's go take a little break in the bathroom so you can get out your feels and we can calm down. Or if you're at a park or an open space, if you're able to take a break on a bench or a car. Kristen, let me know if that answered your follow-up. Lindsay, Ryland's mom, said, we struggle with effective responses in the red zone. I like the idea of practicing calm away from the intense moments. What do you think of hugs or offers for hugs in the red zone, Emily? So yeah, this anger curve image that I'm gonna send to you, those are the two options. You offer a silent hug or space to calm down. Space to calm down can look like the child's going somewhere separate, or it can look like you walking away and just disengaging for a moment. I know my daughter, when she was 2, would have some big feelings about some things. Like, I don't even remember, maybe not me, only having orange cheese and not white cheese, like macaroni that day or something, and stuff that I can't solve. I can't magically change the cheese. And sometimes it was just like allowing her to flop on the ground in the kitchen and be upset. And it seemed like we learned this dance that it was better for me to just lovingly, kindly, but firmly be present without engaging in the fight. I'm here, I'm available, you're safe, but I'm also not going to engage in this argument and just kind of continue about my way, prepping my own lunch, getting some carrots, whatever, and kind of holding a presence that, like, as soon as you're done, you are welcome. We will move forward together. So that space to calm down can look like a lot of different things, but silent hug or space to calm down are the 2 key things I recommend, Emily, for when you're in the red zone. If we can prevent it in the blue zone with either name it, connection, bugs and wishes, things that name it to tame it, we hope that'll help. And if we get to the red zone, let's notice we're here and give them space to calm down or a silent hug till we get back down into the blue zone. Lastly, I want to give you the tool of I love you and the answer is no. This is also a sticker that's present. It's a whoa, low, and slow, connect and correct, and I love you, and the answer is no are all magnet or sticker options that you should be able to find at the Bozeman Montessori check-in desk. I left some at both locations yesterday and today. If they run out, Kristen will let me know, or Maya will let me know, or Allison, and I'll get you more. But if you're setting a limit and there's emotion, one of my favorite phrases is I love you and the answer is no, which can look like a lot of things. I hear that you wish I would get the blue cup, and this is the cup we have right now. I hear that you're very sad that it's time for mom to leave, and it's now time for me to leave. I hear that you feel like you'll never find that stick again. That is very hard and disappointing. And it's time to move on to, like I'm picturing we're walking and we still need to keep walking home. We can be sad about this for as long as we need to. And, I can give you space until your body's able to be safe. Okay, there's so many more things we could dive in, but I want to pivot now to question time, giving you some tools, some ideas to think about what we can do in the blue zone, what we can do in the red zone, and thinking about those 3 reasons that kids have emotions. What questions are on your mind? You can put it in the chat. Mike.
We have a common scenario. Leaving for school in the morning.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to go to school in the morning. We know that the clock is ticking. We got to get out. We both have to get to work.
Yeah.
What are ways to get him to buy into this idea? Because it feels like anything we throw at him is only going to lead to escalation.
Yeah.
And eventually we're going to be in the red zone situation.
Yep. So first of all, can I see hands up or thumbs up or a heart emoji if anyone else has experienced this, or whether it's not about going to school, it's the resistance to go to swim practice or gymnastics or anything else, just so that these guys know they are not alone. Yes. Yay. Lots of thumbs up. You are not alone.
Thank you all. I almost cried.
Does it feel good to know you're not alone?
It certainly does.
It really does. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. I really do believe that. So I want you to think about this template when your child is resistant, emotional, or defiant. Red, some form, I don't want to go, or I'm sad, or I'm just not doing it. You can't make me. What our common 2 tools are what I call the cuckoo cycle, commands and consequences. Buddy, this is what has to happen. This is why. And if you don't do it, you're going to lose a privilege. That tends to make us feel crazy because it doesn't work unless we have a super cooperative kid, which only 40% of kids fall into that category. I didn't happen to land with either of those 40%. So if your child is not there, you are also within the realm of normal. So instead of the cuckoo cycle, I want you to think about a 3-step process I call CEO. So this is not going to work to just keep convincing him to go. I'm going to go this direction instead. The first of the C, move down here. The first in the C is connection. Again, this is the most counterintuitive place to start with, the thing like whoa, low, and slow, or naming it like, oh man, you're just not wanting to go to school today. And maybe pulling him in for a 30-second silent hug. Now, trust me, the 30-second silent hug is one of the most power-packed things to start with, because sometimes I mean, 30 seconds when you really hug for 30 seconds feels like 5 minutes. But boy, is it worth its weight in gold of what it might be able to have him just, yes. Like Maya said, it's like, I can't keep arguing with you because you like get me. You're like validating me. You're with me. And so it makes it harder to keep fighting. Starting with connection or name it as, this is classic negotiation strategy 101. You lean into the person that's resisting and you name what's frustrating them. Then step two, this is one of the biggest categories I see parents struggle with, that it's just learning to speak that kid language. If you're like, okay, I hugged you, but now buddy, we gotta go. That's not as effective as saying hug, 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 hug. Should we skip to the car or should we hop like rabbits? What do you think? Is it going to take us 2 minutes or 3 minutes to get all the way buckled in? I'm going to set my timer. Let's see if we can beat our record. So some way to make it fun or make them think. So as you see here, it says make them think or make it fun with like, you know what are we missing? Let's say it's more about just getting the shoes on and the coat still so you can get to school. Like, what are we missing on our feet? Are we missing bunny rabbits on our feet? Are we missing, just being some playfulness, some options of the thing? And choice is so key here. And I'll give you a tool in just a moment that can really help you build if this is a skill set that is not real familiar or common for you. And then, only then, if we've tried the hug, we've tried the game or the fun, two options of how to get there, and it's still resistant, that we say, buddy, it's now time that you can walk on your own, or I'm going to help you. And you're welcome to still be sad. It's time, I love you, and it's time to get in the car. Step 3. Questions, comments about that option, Mike? Or sorry, Mike's wife, what is your name?
Marit. I'm
Marit. Okay, thank you. Mike or Marit, what are your thoughts?
It's hard to remember the playful in the step 2 when you're in the moment and discouraged. But now that you say it, like again, I just need to make post-its because it is really effective. And when we do remember to be playful, it can totally work.
Yes.
I think for some reason, when we start stressing out, you just like forget all the tools that you have at your fingertips. So
Totally. And it's a skill to practice, because it's one of those, just like we're asking our kids to be able to access higher level thinking in their emotional moment, it does better if we've practiced a bunch outside of that emotional moment. So what I recommend you consider is, I'm going to give you guys this handout and print it, put it in your bathroom on the mirror, so that you're not looking at it just when you're upset, not like you're going to be like, oh, he's not listening. Go get the handout. What are we supposed to say? But that while you brush your teeth twice a day, your eyes glance over these type of empowering statements. Let's just take a moment. Oh gosh, I did something weird to seeing your faces. There you are. Can you still see the screen I'm sharing? Oh, good. Oh, awesome. Okay, so let's take a moment. Are you seeing like my whole screen or just that handout?
Yeah, the whole desktop.
Oh, okay. So you're seeing all the things. I pushed some weird
Empowering
buttons.
statements is front and center, so it was
Okay,
visible.
it was still clear. Okay, well, I'm coming back, just this window. So let's read these together for just a second. If those of you that are with me would unmute, anyone who's willing, we're going to just popcorn style read what's in the quotes, not the description, just the quote, and then others, we get to listen and see what do we notice or think a child would be feeling if they heard that statement. Would you go ahead, Marit, and read number 1 and then Mike number 2?
I've seen you pick up your toys before. I know you can do it.
What ideas do you have to get these toys picked up?
Yeah. That's one of my favorite. What's your idea for ... What's your idea for getting these things on? What's your idea for getting this cleaned up? Next, someone else.
You were really having fun. It is hard to stop playing to clean up. How about I pick up the squares and you pick up the rectangles?
I'll do the next one. What is supposed to be happening now? This is my favorite for getting him to keep eating dinner. Honey, what's supposed to be happening right now?
Oh,
These are good.
yeah,
These are good.
that's good.
Next.
I need your help and you are a good helper. Do you want to clean up while singing or silently?
Thank you. Next.
Do you want,
Sorry.
sorry, Maya.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Kristen.
Do you, no, I've shrunk it. Do you want to put the big blocks away first or the small blocks?
Maya.
Riot, it is time to put the blocks away now. That was a little more aggressive, I think, than
Oh, that was wonderful. This is one of my favorites next. Just silent. Put a gentle hand on his shoulder, take him by the hand, lead him to the blocks, and smile with a knowing look. Next.
Do you want to set the timer for how much time you think it'll take to pick up your toys?
Nice. And I will say, I try to make these not be yes or no's. This is from someone else, but I would change that to, do you think, should we set it for 3 minutes or 4 minutes? Like choice versus yes or no is a really powerful determiner of it to, if we've got those strong-willed kids, they're more likely to cooperate. Next.
It is more fun if we work together. What would you like me to do to help? And what will you do?
Letting them be a boss of you. What do you want mommy to do? What part will you do? And lastly, as soon as the toys are picked up, it'll be story time. What did you find yourself thinking, feeling, or deciding when you heard those?
My line has been, what's your job right now? And I think it's much better to say what's supposed to be happening, right? Or is that what the phrase was? What's supposed to be happening?
What's supposed to be happening right now? What's your job right now? I think that's great. What's your plan for getting your job done right now? Those are all great options. Yep.
I like the supposed to be happening because that's, I think, less confrontational.
Anyone else want to share if there was one key one that stood out to you as like, I've never thought of saying it that way, and that just kind of really resonated as I said it or heard it?
It's nice to break down a big task into smaller tasks, like the squares and the rectangles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My
son loves. Oh, sorry. You go.
I was just gonna say the open-endedness of the what ideas do you have is we'll try because I think we often offer choices.
Yeah.
So I like the open-endedness.
Yeah. Speaking of open-endedness, part 2 of this handout is going to offer you alternatives to like, go brush your teeth, get your coat on, get your dish off the table, get up to bath time, stop whining, quit fighting with your brother. And so just listen to how these land for you too in terms of open-ended questions. Hey, what do you need to do so your teeth won't feel scuzzy? What are you taking so you won't be cold outside? What's next on your bedtime routine chart? How could you and your brother solve this? What did we decide we'd do with our dishes when we finished eating? What words can you use so I can hear you? What do you find yourself thinking, feeling, or deciding when you hear those open-ended questions?
It means I don't have to repeat myself or nag.
It is the key, and I do this, it's like, it's a me thing. Again, like you said earlier, this is about self-control. If I'm like, get your shoes on, why haven't you put your shoes on? It's usually like, oh wait, let's try this. What are you missing? And it's just like, oh my God, it's so much more effective most of the time that their brains will tune in and hear it and want to have the answer. And it takes less repetition because if anything, you're repeating. What else do you notice about how it felt to have those open-ended questions? Did you feel more cooperative or less cooperative than when I was ordering you what to do next?
Definitely more cooperative, and it almost turns those things into a game in some of those instances.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And the key here, Sage says, hearing them, I would feel so much more empowered and respected than just hearing orders. Amen. Yeah. So it's about understanding this is also a double whammy. It's more likely that they feel empowered and respected and more likely to lead to them doing it. And it's building their thinking brain because when I say, what do you need to do so that you'll be warm outside? Did you notice your brain wheels had to actually turn? Like, what do I want to wear? What will be warm enough? What do I want to wear my coat or my sweater? Your brain is immediately picturing those items in your environment. You're picturing where is my coat? You're picturing putting that on and how it will feel, how it felt to wear it yesterday. And this is like, if we're getting frustrated with older kids that aren't thinking for themselves, sometimes it's because we're never encouraging them to think for themselves. So this question prompting, even though we're still at the phase of prompting, we're building the right blocks towards an 8, 10, 12-year-old who's going to be able to think more for themselves. What do I need to wear so I'll be warm outside? Because we hope those questions we ask become their internal questions. They're not going to order themselves around the way we're ordering them around. Yeah. Great questions. So many handouts. I'm realizing I have them all open. I'm going to give them to Kristen to share all in a document with you all. Great. I really appreciate all your what ifs and things. So what else are any questions that we haven't addressed? Well, why don't we do this? I will stick around for 15 more minutes if anyone else wants to stick around. But let's go ahead and wrap up with just, I'd love if popcorn style, whether you put it in the chat or you're unmute for a second, if you would be willing to share what's one thing you're either going to start or stop doing based on what you've learned tonight. Lindsay just said, we're about to, do you want to brush your teeth or put your PJs on our son right now? Thanks for the talk. What else? Just unmute, popcorn. Go ahead.
I appreciate the clarity around the red behavior or the red zone of upset, and that in that zone, there are only two options or two effective, options: to give a hug or to give space, and then to practice those things.
Yes. Thank you.
I love that. And the CEO for our get to school routine is going to be employed tomorrow morning.
Awesome. Love it. What else? Any one thing you're going to start or stop doing based on what we've talked about today. And while people are sharing, I'm putting just a couple of these documents into the chat box for anyone who is on their computer and able to click on that and download them. Jenna said, CEO and the bug and wish. What is supposed to be happening right now? All of this is great. Thanks so much. Kat says, I'll talk to the children more outside of the moment and practice managing their emotions in certain common situations. Awesome. Katie? Oh, you already shared. Sorry. Or did you? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate you making this space for yourselves and your children to be in your school, to be able to be here and learn a few tools. This is a lifelong process to grow, keep managing ourselves, and to be able to help be that emotion coach for our kids. So there's nothing more important, in my opinion. It's going to have ways that it pays dividends for years and years to come. All right, I'll stick around if any final questions that anyone wants to ask more privately. Otherwise, thank you all and have a good night.
Thanks, Flora. I have a question, but I can wait since I'm not a parent. I can wait till if there are still parents about.
Okay, let's wait if there's any other parents that want to ask a question.
Okay.
Go ahead and just unmute anyone who has a question. Sage? Sometimes it can be hard. Looks like you're trying to unmute.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes.
I'm struggling with the app. We've been having phases of a few weeks at a time where Leo, who's almost 2, strongly prefers one of us and will have meltdowns. And it's just been really hard. And we were just wondering if you could speak to that or give any advice.
Yes. First of all, can I see thumbs up from anyone else who's experienced that? So you know you're not alone. And I'm giving a thumbs up because we have had that in our family too. Yeah, you're not alone. And Kristen too. Yeah. So, one of the most important things I think is this is one of those things to support him through with lovingness, with love, with kindness and firmness. Meaning that if we see that upset and preferring one parent as changing our behavior, it actually usually makes it worse, not better. So if you're doing an every other night bedtime or like you got a cup for him and he's like, no, I only want it for mom, I would start a regular, the cup is dad got the cup and you can have this cup or no cup at all, but daddy is helping you. Or it's daddy's night to do bath time and we're having daddy do bath time. And that you might have to go through a couple of what I call suffering with a purpose so that you can stop suffering in circles, meaning when you just say, you're welcome to feel that, but that's not going to change our behavior. Like, we love you, and daddy is, or mommy is just as good at bath time, and we love you. And, and you can give the yes when, like, it'll be mommy's turn again tomorrow, or it'll be daddy's turn again tomorrow. You wanting it to be daddy? Yep, it'll be absolutely daddy tomorrow. And that the more you just keep to that structure, whatever you as the adult have decided is who's helping him with bath time or getting him the cup or whatever the thing is, changing his diaper, you keep following through. It is not his job to get to choose who does that. I find that behavior decreases. And it's important so that the relationship gets built through going through that challenge. So what can be hard is the preferred parent wants to solve it by just coming and being there, and it feels good to solve it. But the non-preferred parent feels like they want to give up trying because it just keeps being awful. So this is why I recommend suffer with a purpose. And one other piece that I found work really well with one family is make sure you're talking about it in a positive way. We can do this with vegetables. Like, I know you gotta have broccoli, but like eat the broccoli so you can get pasta. It's like, I know you gotta have mom tonight, but like you'll get the other parent tomorrow. And it's like, just keep that positive language. It really changed everything in this one family. They were just making sure to be like, oh my gosh, look at our calendar. It's dad's night for bath time. Yay, dad night. Oh, it's going to be so fun. And just make sure you're leading with projecting that both parents are amazing and wonderful and capable. And just know that you're going to have to go through some upsets, and that's okay. Follow-up questions or comments?
I was just going to comment that we experience that sometimes as teachers, that they prefer one teacher over the other. But let's say it's my job to do this certain thing in the classroom, even just, okay, well, I will walk with you to do this, or we will go here together. But then it's so and so's turn. That has really kind of helped a lot too, at least in the classroom.
Yeah, so the preferred parent can kind of assist towards the non-preferred parent to say, I love you, and you can offer them some comfort. I love you, and it's daddy helping you, or I love you, and mommy can help you with this. Yeah, great point. Great question. Thanks, Sage. What else? What other questions do you have? Nothing's too big or too small. Sage said that was helpful. Good. Struggling with unmuting. Okay, glad that that helped. Any others? Jenna, you're still with us? Do you have questions or are you just hanging out to hear other people's questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I don't have kids yet, but I have spoke to my husband about, when our kids like do get emotional, and he really has his not mindset, but he oftentimes will just say, well, if they're crying and they don't need to cry, I'm just going to tell them like crying's not going to solve this issue or whatever, like tears are not going to help with this or with that. And I'm definitely more on like the let's talk through the emotion side, but I was wondering if there's like a good medium, just kind of going off of two, like the powerful adults and powerless kids versus powerful kids and powerless adults, of kind of like finding that happy medium of giving them their space, or just like the other thing we mentioned too, all feelings are allowed, but not all responses are appropriate. Just kind of helping them understand, I guess, what is appropriate for their feelings that they're feeling.
Yeah. Well, I do think that it's okay for parents to have slightly different ways that they say things to the kids or what their limits are with emoting. My husband was raised by the warden of the state prison. I was raised by a kindergarten teacher. We have very different orientations a little bit and like levels of that, like firmness versus kindness. And I think it's okay. And I encourage you when you get in your parenting, if there are moments you disagree on how it's going, that you support whoever's taking the lead in that moment, unless they're like physically being harmed. Even if you disagree, you let it play out how it does and you process behind the scenes later. This is what I don't really, here are my thoughts and feelings about this. Here are my thoughts and feelings about this. Can we come to a medium that's kind and firm at the same time? So I will just say that. But it's also, there are times my husband says things to my kids and I'm like, oh, I don't love that. But I'm also like, it's not the thing that I need to nitpick every way he's going to say something, or I'd be really miserable to be married to me. So how can we have our own nuances within that? But how do you be kind and firm at the same time? I think it's how do we hold that limit that, yes, we don't want to negotiate with the screaming, changing our mind of whether we're going to get you the blue cup or the red cup. And so maybe if he's like, I'm going to tell him like crying doesn't help, might be like, well, could we say, that I love you and the answer is no is my favorite for both sides of this equation, overly firm or overly kind. For the overly kind person, it's like, remember to say along with your I love you that you're still holding the no. I love that. And then for the other person, how about, honey, every time you're like, hey, that doesn't help. I love you. And that is not going to change my mind. Like when you can take a breath and we'll talk about this, then we can talk again. So if you both can work on using that, I think that's a really nice way to meet in the middle. Thanks for that question. Katie, I think go ahead because we're getting close to the end. What's your question?
Okay. Well, I mean, I could go all night with questions for you, but the one that piqued my interest was about sharing. You said that in your house, you don't have this thing of like, I'll set a timer, you can play with it for 2 minutes and you can play with it. In your house, if I heard you correctly, the child who chose it or picked it up first gets to have it until they're finished with it. I was wondering, could you sell me on that idea? Because I did not grow up that way. And I notice on the play yard that this issue comes up a lot. And so like our swings, we do use timers, but
I will just say that like sibling book after sibling book that I have read, the research is ironic. It's opposite than what our inclination is, which is that forced sharing does not tend to lead to more spontaneous generosity and sharing. And that actually it's better to have the blanket rule like you do in Montessori. If someone has a work, it's theirs till they're done. You don't go over and say, when's it my turn with that work? it's theirs to do their work until they're done. There are many other things to choose from, and so it's theirs till they're done. So I have a little handout that I share with families that this is to me what is the boil down of many of the greatest books that I've read. The authors of How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, Listen So Kids Will Talk have a book called Siblings Without Rivalry. And so, make that family rule. If someone's playing with something, it's theirs till they're done. Because I find that when it's like, okay, so you want to turn on the swing, let's set a timer. It encourages the child to want to not find anything else to do and just their eyes glance at the one toy that their sister just grabbed, and immediately that's all I want. And every time we enforce that with like, okay, well, you'll get a turn in 5 minutes, it keeps that pattern rather than encouraging the other, that you can look at your sister, see that she has the unicorn, and find something else in her to play with. And if you come back and the swing is available, then the swing is available. Now, don't get me wrong, there's certain prize thing if someone's going to just hoard it all day, like the swings at school, like you may have occasions that it's just the universal, nobody's on a swing for more than 5 minutes, just so that there's equality. But we just don't want to fall in that pattern of constantly, like, of all the options, they lump on the one thing that the other child just chose. So a couple other options in there about how to problem solve with them, and I can share that with you if you want later.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap us up because it's my daughter's 9th birthday tomorrow, and she's waiting for me to close here so she can open her presents tonight because I'll be gone tomorrow evening. So wonderful to be with you tonight. Thank you for all your great questions. And please know you can follow up with me. Sustainableparenting.com is my website. Kristen and all of your educators, of course, are wonderful resources too. So ask them questions. And thank you again for Bozeman Montessori hosting me.
Thank you so much. This was really a great experience.
Okay.
Thank you, Flora. This is great.
Thank you.
Great. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks,
you, Flora.